Hi, everyone. I hope everyone's having a great Saturday. I think we're going to begin our zero waste home practices and skills share that is being presented by Natalie Warrick today. My name is Rachel Isaacson. I work for Community Solutions, and this is part of our winter Skillshare series that we started kind of at the beginning of when COVID started hitting, because we realized that a lot of the Skillshares that we were doing in person, a lot of people wouldn't be able to show up in person anymore. So we wanted to make sure that these skill sets were available. And this is a part of our mission at Community Solutions, because we're trying to teach communities how to be more resilient in the face of climate change and other turbulent changes that we're going through. So I just want to thank Natalie for coming in, and she's volunteering her time to show us some of her favorite recipes. So I'm going to pass it down to Natalie.
Great. So a little bit intro about me. I grew up in Texas, but I ended up moving to Ohio, first Cincinnati and then Dayton around college. Right now I live in Walnut Hills in Dayton. Kind of my journey a little bit to share, going to waste-free, composting, doing all that stuff, being environmentally conscious. I just started working at a restaurant. They tried to look at their vendors and stuff. They tried to get all of their food locally. That just learning the menu and stuff like that, where stuff grows, where it came from, caused me to be more concerned about just what we consume, what we eat, where it comes from. And then I started at home thinking about my food waste. And that's why I kind of learned about composting, or, I knew about it, but just what does that entail? And then after that, I just started wondering about all the other items in my house, just looking at not being overwhelmed necessarily, but just using certain things and wondering where they come from, what is the end of life for it, what do I do when I'm done with it, and what happens then, like when it goes in the trash. Learning about landfill versus composting versus recycling. Then, let's see. And then like currently I love making stuff at home. I love cooking. That's my favorite thing. That's like also the easiest thing, just being waste free. I can kind of control what I buy, where it comes from, what I consume. I'm plant-based right now. That is my, I used to be fully vegan, but the COVID and the pandemic kind of made it tricky sometimes to fully be that. So I'm gonna look at myself and my eating habits for the new year, but definitely currently plant-based. I just like obviously making a meal or making something, knowing that all that I've done has not used any plastic, and that's really tricky and that's really tough, but that's just something that I really like to do. So I really hope that as we go through these recipes that you learn something from them, and even if it's something you already know, that it just inspires you.
All right. Let me know when you want me to start playing the videos.
All right. I think I'm ready.
Okay. So we're going to start out with the apple cider vinegar. Let me make sure I have this pulled up correctly.
Yeah. Hello, so we're going to be making apple cider vinegar, or apple scrap vinegar as it's called. I have some notes here that I'm going to be referring to. I'm a note taker, and I just wanted to make sure that I relayed all the information that I've learned over the years making apple cider vinegar. So I'll be referring to that. So someone might ask, why should I make apple cider vinegar, or what can I use it for once it's finished? There are a couple of things actually. A lot of people like to, number one, drink it. There's a couple of health benefits and the probiotics that's within the liquid. As well as it's really good for your hair. If you use it for conditioner, it hydrates the scalp and the hair and the skin. You can use it for all-purpose cleaner. I like to combine it with lemon scraps and use that on my countertop or on my wooden floor. You can use as a substitute for lemon juice if you have a couple of recipes or like salad dressing and you find that you don't have lemons. You can use this if you have it on hand, ready to go. You can just substitute that. You can use it in vegan cashew ricotta. There are a lot of other things as well, like homemade coleslaw. I like that. Get creative if you find something or find a recipe and you think, ooh, this tangy taste from the apple cider vinegar might be good. Put it in there and see what it tastes like. So another reason why I love making it is because I can eat apples, save the cores, put them in a container, put them in the freezer, let them accumulate, and then when I have enough, or I have enough to fill a container that I have, I'll put it all together and start this apple cider vinegar. So I'm able to get another use out of it before I put the apples in the trash, or I actually personally will put it in my compost that I have in my backyard. So that's really awesome, just trying to be waste-free as much as I can. Secondly, keep in mind this is a fermentation process, but don't get scared. It's pretty easy to make this, but there are a couple things to keep in mind as we go along. First, we want to make sure that our utensils are clean and dry. That just helps the fermentation, and as the apple cider vinegar is going, that it does not get moldy. Secondly, don't use chlorinated water. And thirdly, don't use metal. So this is a glass jar. You can also use plastic, but metal just makes the liquid as it ferments taste really bad at the end of the day, or at the end of the month actually, since it does take a couple months. And at least too, just be patient. So apple cider vinegar again is easy, but there are 2 phases, so it does take up to a couple months to be ready. So if you want this to be ready, say you have a recipe you want to use, you have a time limit, go ahead and make this sooner rather than later, because it will take at least a month to make. All right, so about the ingredients, any type of apples work. You can even use bruised apples, but moldy apples, I would just go ahead and throw that in the trash or the compost, unfortunately. We don't want to put that in the apple cider vinegar. You can use apples again from the freezer, straight from the freezer actually, as long as you're able to put them in the container and pour water over it, and the other ingredients that we'll use, you can use it straight frozen. So we will end up using sugar, or actually I'm using simple syrup, which is sugar and hot water combined, so that mixes easier in the water later on. We'll be using sugar. You can use honey, but actually I don't encourage that. It slows down the process and actually adds about 3 weeks to the overall fermentation timeline. So sugar is probably best. And I just wanted to note, the mother from the fermentation will be visible, but it will be small and flimsy. Some people are able to create a mother that will rise up to the top, and they can somehow scoop that out with a spoon or even with their hands and use that to jumpstart the next apple cider vinegar batch that they make. I've never been able to do that. It's been too flimsy. Mine will actually end up looking a little bit like up here, kind of a beige color. It'll break apart, but that's actually really healthy for you, that mother. So I like to keep it in that batch for when I use it later on. All right, so we're gonna look at our ingredients, what we'll need to make apple cider vinegar. So I'm gonna move the camera for you guys and see what we have going on here. All right, so obviously you will need apple cores, apple scraps. Don't worry about the stems or the seeds. We're gonna be straining this later on, so you can just keep that in there. You will need, I would say you'll need 2 containers. I like to use 3 total. So you'll need this first one, which we'll put the apple scraps in. You'll need a second one for when we strain it and start that second phase. This is the first phase. This will be for the second phase. And then lastly, I like to use a 3rd container or a bottle to store it for a while at the end when it's all done and ready to go. You'll need a tablespoon, measuring cup, sugar or simple syrup, coffee filter or a fabric scrap, rubber band, a spoon, and I like to use a chalk marker to keep dates. You can also just mark it on the calendar. We'll look at the timeline as we go on with this recipe, but it helps me when I write it on the jar to remember when I need to strain it, when I need to move things to the next container. And you will need a strainer and a bigger bowl. And lastly, a fermentation weight. So people can purchase a fermentation weight. I like to find something around my house so I don't have to buy another item. I found this lid. Actually, it's a plastic lid. I think it's a mayonnaise lid for when I bought mayonnaise more often. I wasn't, I guess, as vegan in my diet. So I bought this from the store. I cut the lid and it's able to just sit. What will happen is we'll fill this jar with water and this will just keep the apple slices and stuff like that underneath the water. All right. So that is all you need. So we'll start the first stage. Again, it's really simple. We just have to measure and time is on our side. We'll have to wait a bit as things ferment. So first stage, we'll put all the ingredients together and let it sit. The second stage, we will strain the apple scraps and then let it sit again. So that's the idea here. So I'm gonna put just a couple more scraps in here. I was gonna put a bit more I have here on the side, but I think that should be good for now. You can do any size jar actually. Previously, I like to make it all at once so that, because it takes so long to ferment. So I started this a couple of days ago. So really any size container, any size jar, I've even done smaller than this guy here. Keep in mind that when you strain, the liquid after it's finished will be less than what you think it will be, just because the apple takes space in the jar. So the recipe here is I do 3 tablespoons of simple syrup to 1 cup of water. If you're using straight sugar, it's just 1 tablespoon of sugar to 1 cup of water. I like to use simple syrup again because it's already liquid, so it mixes into with the water easier when I put it over the apples. So I'm gonna measure that out real fast, starting with the water. First put in your apples, and then we'll do the water. Okay, so this is 2 cups of water. We want to fill it just hitting the apples. So might just be over 2 cups. Yeah. And the apples will float. I'll talk about the floating and then they will end up going down over time. I'll talk about that in a second. Actually dump a little bit out. So when I put this over, it stays down, yeah. Dry this off real quick. Okay. So I did 2 cups of water, so that's 6 tablespoons of simple syrup. Before you put your fermentation weight on, this is when we grab our spoon and we want to give it a good stir. If you are worried about the sugar or the simple syrup getting all the way through, over time it will, I guess, get through all the apples, because we will be stirring this every day or every 3 days at the most. So always have a spoon on hand. Okay, that should be good. All right. Put the weight on. So I accidentally got water in again. I'm gonna dry it off. There's my, I don't know, maybe I'm just picky. I just don't like water sitting above it. Oh, I did it again. I apologize. Okay, I just gotta be careful. All right, so that's actually perfect. So I guess I'm picky, but what I'm getting at is we don't need to be too worried about the apples touching the surface. It's a give and take. So if you see apples touching the surface, you might want to try a different fermentation weight. But guess what I'm getting at is, I'm going back and forth here, I apologize. What I'm getting at is we will be stirring it every day, pushing the apples back under the surface, and that's why it's really important to have a good weight, but also to stir it every day. So if some apples are hitting the surface and getting some air, that's okay. Just make sure that you stir it, because I will say I unfortunately made that mistake of forgetting about it for a couple of weeks. And we talked about the mother earlier. So beginning this apple cider vinegar process, I was like, how am I supposed to know if it's the mother or if it's mold? The mother will be beige color and flaky looking. I don't know, kind of it's breaking apart there. Do you see that here? That's remnants of the mother. Mold will definitely be gray and fuzzy, just like what we would find on expired food or bread. It might even turn green. Those colors are bad. The beige color, the cream color is good. So keep that in mind, and that's all about the fermentation weight here. That's what the goal is. So we will put the filter on, put the rubber band on. This is when I like to put today's date on it, or 2 to 3 weeks from now. That's when we'll begin the next phase. I just end up putting today's date on it. Or you can do the math 2 to 3 weeks out and put that date on here instead. Or on your calendar. So we'll put that aside. So now that we have this ready to go, it'll just sit for the 2 to 3 weeks. During that time, you will start to see the apples fall. Once they aren't at the surface anymore and they've fallen, that means it's almost ready to strain for the second phase. Once they've fallen and they're not hitting the surface, you can actually take that fermentation weight out and you don't have to stir it anymore. The whole reason for the stirring and integrating is so that that mold will not occur, because that's what we don't want. So we're gonna pretend like this has been sitting for 2 to 3 weeks. I'm just gonna set it aside. What we'll end up doing is, once it's finished, we would end up taking everything out, pouring it into here, letting the apple scraps fall into the strainer. And here at this point, we would end up composting or throwing the apple scraps away. We would have our leftover liquid, which again would be a little bit less than what we initially thought. That's okay. That's why I like to make a couple batches or big batches at a time, so I have enough going, because it takes a couple of weeks. We'll take this liquid in the other jar, pour it, and now this one will end up sitting for 4 weeks or a whole month. So I would put that date or today's date and put a time period out in my head. We would do that, mark that. We would grab another filter, or honestly, I have used the same filter and the same rubber band for this new jar and let this sit. After the 4 weeks, it should be ready to go. Throughout this entire process, when you store it, make sure that you're storing it in a cool, dark place. That just makes sure that the fermentation isn't getting too hot and you're able to control your environment better. So, as you're going, you'll see bubbles, like when you stir it, that's a good sign actually. That means the fermentation process is going. And again, that mother will start to form on top. As long as it's not fuzzy and gray and bluish color, you're good. If you do see that, unfortunately, you're gonna have to start over. But don't worry, that happened to me. My previous batch actually, like I said, got lazy and didn't stir. And I've been doing this for about a year now. So mistakes happen, but I'm humbled. If it's cloudy, that's good. It just shows that it went through a fermentation process. So here's actually some finished apple cider vinegar. You can see it's a little cloudy there. That's good. You just give it a good shake if you want to use it again. Like I said, the mother will break up, but it's in there. The probiotics and the good bacteria. It's in there for you. So, one might ask, how do I know if it's ready? How can I tell if it's ready to be consumed or ready to go, if it's truly apple cider vinegar? My best recommendation is if it smells like nail polish, then it's not quite ready. If it has a sweet, tangy vinegar smell to it, kind of like apples, the apple cider vinegar. Think of those descriptions. Think of smells and tasting notes that you might have in mind when you want this to be ready. If it smells like nail polish or kind of stiff to your nose, makes your nose squinch up, then it's not quite ready yet. If you're not quite sure, time is on your side. So even if you let it sit for maybe 2 or more weeks, each batch is different. Each apple is different. Sugar amount, it's science, so it's a fun, exciting experiment every time. So I would encourage you to just wait and see what happens. If you end up not storing it into a second jar, that's fine. You can keep it this way for a bit. I just like to put it in a jar or some bottle with the lid so that it stays better longer. But if you feel like you need to aerate it a bit longer, that's fine too. So I would say if you're not using your apple cider vinegar once a week, I would burp it. So whatever container that it's in, if it has a lid, try to release the gases that will just naturally build up. I've never had a container explode because I didn't burp the apple cider vinegar, but I've heard that it has happened over time. So it's just a little recommendation if you notice that you haven't used it yet in a while. So timeline, you have the first phase, which is 2 to 3 weeks. Then you have that second phase, which is basically about a month. All in all, I recommend that if you're looking at the timeline, it will take about 2 months to be done. And then after it's finished and you think it's ready to go and you're tasting it, using it in recipes, and you feel good about it, that is awesome. Yay, you've made apple cider vinegar. And that can last in the cool, dark place in your cupboard up to a year or more. I haven't really found any evidence of expired apple cider vinegar unless it's been heated and then cooled down and kind of messed with the temperature. So that's how you make apple cider vinegar. Yay! Thanks, guys. All right. So we've been chatting a little bit in the group chat here on the side. You can always enter any questions there throughout this entire process, honestly, even in other videos. I'm not worried about it. But as we're going, right now, does anyone have any questions about the video, about apple cider vinegar or apple scrap vinegar? Feel free to write them in. I'd love to, or if, honestly, we'll get to it. Any other tidbits or something, even corrections, honestly, like, oh, I found that hasn't worked. I would love to hear about it.
I see that someone just asked, what happens if instead of 1 month, you let it stay for 2 months or a little more?
Yeah, that's a good one. So I was typing that out, but I was also talking at the same time. Totally fine. So I think that's totally fine, as long as the apples have already been strained from that first phase. If it's been sitting in the jar, apple strain, just the liquid, and you're kind of waiting, or you forgot about it and it's just sitting there, as long as you don't see mold on top, fuzzy stuff, and that mother's there at the top instead, I think that's fine. You can stir it a little bit, shake it up. That's what I would recommend. I'm not try to stay to the book. I have to stick to the rules. I don't want to get sick. But it is homemade stuff. I'm not entirely picky. I will say that. I don't know if that answers the question. I think it's fine. I missed what you, the way. Oh, okay. So for that video,
hold on a second. Would you mind when you read questions out? Would you mind reading the questions out loud for the people seeing the recording?
Yeah, I read that one a little fast to myself. So Anne Marie said, I missed what you used as the weight. What did you use? So for the video, I used a mayonnaise lid. It was a blue plastic lid that had been on a plastic mayonnaise jar from the store. That's what I used. In the past, I've used, trying to think, other lids that didn't seem to fit around the surface entirely, and I put a few marbles on top of the lids to kind of like weigh it down a little bit. I've also heard of other people not using a fermentation weight, and I'm actually making a couple batches right now doing that. The key is you have to stir every single day or even twice a day because you don't want mold to form. So if you want to make scrap apple cider vinegar, but you don't have anything in your house that you can find that would work at all, go ahead and try to use it. Just got to make sure that you stir. Does anyone else have any other questions, or if I need to clarify something else? Oh, you're making a mayo? That's awesome. I never made mayo.
I can imagine that could be like a whole different part of the series. It's like how to make just different like common household foods.
Yeah, yeah. Barbecue sauce.
And just asked, is it really as easy as it sounds, or do you just make it easy?
Thank you. Okay, that's what I was thinking about when I said, like, don't be afraid. Not that if it's difficult that you're afraid, that doesn't apply. But I say the hardest part is time and just being patient, which I didn't really show in the video. I'll get to the simple syrup, Bev, in a second for that next question. But as easy as it sounds, I think it's pretty easy. Honestly, you are putting apple scraps in the jar, putting sugar in it, letting science do its thing, just waiting and stirring, and then you strain it, and then you have apple cider vinegar. So I think it's pretty easy.
I feel so silly to think that you would ever just put vinegar on some apples.
Yeah.
Nope, it is simple syrup or sugar and water.
Mm-hmm. So the simple syrup, when I made that, just to, I guess, clarify, I always weigh out in a container or a jar or something. When I'll end up putting hot water over the sugar to make it. So just make sure that you have something that will melt. So I always grab just a small jar, small container. I'll use a weight, or you can even use teaspoons, or depending on how much you're making, just equal parts sugar, equal parts water, almost boiling, to be honest, so that you get that sugar all mixed in. And that's what I used for the recipe. Instead of using the original recipe that I read, called for 1 cup of water and 1 tablespoon of sugar. And I felt like that sugar didn't mix in enough with the water that was at room temperature. So instead, I substituted the simple syrup for the sugar, and I upped it because it's kind of diluted itself. So I did 3 tablespoons of simple syrup to the water. And for me, that's worked so far.
Can you send me the recipes, like including the simple syrup to me, and then I can send that up as a follow-up to everyone at the end?
Yeah, that'd be great. And I love that too, because I'm a visual learner, but then if I make it and I'm going, I definitely like to have that written down so I don't forget. Awesome. I can do that.
And then Felicia asked, how do you know when it's time to strain the apples? Can you strain at 2 weeks as long as the apples are submerged? And does letting it sit an additional week serve a purpose?
That's a great question. I did say 2 to 3 weeks. In the past, I felt like I wanted to extract more of that apple flavor, let it sit a bit longer, kind of marinate in the jar. I would say if you do it at 2 weeks and you strain it, your apple cider vinegar will be all right. If you do the 3 weeks, it'll just be stronger, if that makes sense. And I'm always about the strong. My coffee is strong. My apple cider vinegar is strong. So go for the 3 weeks, see what happens. Maybe even compare it and see what you like better.
Like, amen.
Yeah.
And then someone asked, instead of sugar, could you use agave?
That is interesting. Actually, I haven't thought of that. I did mention honey, and I know agave is often like a vegan substitute for honey. I would just encourage you to try it out, see what happens. Agave does have that thickness to it. So when you put it on top of the apples with the water and stir it around, you just might have to stir it a bit more to integrate it more. Or you could treat it as the simple syrup, where you have the agave and you pour almost boiling hot water over it, and you stir that up and you get that more liquefied. But you just might have to add more of that agave syrup amount to the jar of apples and water, if that makes sense. I don't know. I haven't tried that though.
Can I ask a final question?
Yeah.
Here. Would you mind sharing some simple ways to I remember you shared to me previously how you got all the apple scraps, and I thought that'd be something interesting to share here.
Yes. Okay. So can't remember. I think I said in the video, first and foremost, the way I've been making my apple cider vinegar from scraps is I would, or my husband often eats apples, and we have leftover apples and the apple core especially. And instead of throwing that single apple core in the compost, I will collect the apple cores in the freezer in an airtight container. And so they'll be frozen, and then I'll let them collect enough to where I can fill a jar and make another batch of the apple cider vinegar. I've even been lazy and broken apart the apple pieces and kind of put them in the jar, frozen essentially, and then I'll pour the room temperature water, make the apple cider vinegar just like in the video that you just saw, and they will thaw out over time sitting, and it's worked out. The apple cider vinegar has come out exactly how I like it. And then in the video that you just saw, specifically that I work at a coffee shop. I actually work at Ghostlight Coffee Shop in Dayton, and we have sold Thanksgiving pies, and we sold apple pies. And I was so proud of my husband because he talked to the baker. He's like, "Well, Natalie loves to make apple cider vinegar. Can you save some of that?" So he brought home 5 gallon Ziploc bags full of apple scraps. And so I have 2 bags sitting in my freezer, and I was able to disperse and use all the other bags. So that was kind of funny, like a holiday thing. So if you ever make a pie or something like that, you already know that you can use that waste to make something else, which is really exciting.
Yeah, I definitely took note of that as because this was my first year making pie, so I thought it'd be great
Okay,
to add that as like a new tradition to also save the scraps. Like
that's a
I
good
wish,
idea.
wish I'd
And I
known.
thought about it too. I know Thanksgiving is obviously over. I mean, who knows? Someone could make like a holiday apple pie for Christmas on,
Right.
I don't know, whatever holiday it is. But
Well, now that people are more inside, I'm supposing that people are just like, I'm going to start baking more.
right, right.
So I think we should probably move on to the next video, but would you mind still monitoring the chat and like answering people via chat during, because I see more questions, but I think we should move on. I
Mhm.
will say I'll also be stepping away from my computer during the video just for a tiny bit.
That's fine. Okay.
All right, so the next thing that we're going to be learning about is laundry detergent.
Hey, so we're going to be making powdered laundry detergent. Again, I really like this because it cuts off any use of plastic within the house. So let's look at the ingredients of what we need to make this. So we will be using borax, baking soda, washing soda, and this is homemade. I'm going to explain this in a second. And a bar of soap. You can use Castile soap, or I need to use up this lavender soap. It's the Good Bar soap from Whole Foods, and I was able to purchase that using no plastic, so that's what I went for in the past, and I still have some, so I just need to use that up. That's what I'll be using with this recipe today. And then you also need a container to put everything in once we have it made, and a funnel, and then some measuring cups, a knife, and a cutting board. And then you can chop up, later we'll chop up the soap. I've already started doing that. I like to do that before I put it into the food processor. But I really encourage you to use a blender or a food processor to make this laundry detergent. That really helps out. So first, let's go over the washing soda, because this was something that I found to be really interesting and that helps out the detergent, just makes it better. So the difference between baking soda and washing soda is baking soda is sodium bicarbonate. So simply heating, putting in the oven, putting the baking soda in the oven and heating it will drive some of the chemicals off, making it sodium carbonate, washing soda. That's what we want. So the recipe for that and what I've done in the past is I will put baking soda and lay it across a pan and put in the oven at around 200 degrees for about 30 minutes to an hour. And that's the thing, is you can't overcook the baking soda, but you want to make sure that all the water within the baking soda is gone. Sometimes I'll check on it and just sift the baking soda around on the pan in the oven to mix it all up and make sure that it cooks evenly and well. So once you are done baking it for about an hour, take it out from the oven and allow it to cool down. And you'll actually know when it's done and when the baking soda has changed into washing soda when all the glittery, when it doesn't look as glittery and all the clumps have died away and it looks kind of dull. And I just put this in a random jar. So it used to be an Alfredo jar, but I reused it. So I have a lot of different jars like this. So that's what's in here. Feel free to purchase that instead from the store if you don't feel comfortable doing that. That's just what I've done in the past. So I have some left over and that's what I'll be including in this recipe. I will note when you're working with washing soda, try to keep the particles and your hands when messing with it and touching it away from your eyes and your mouth, because unfortunately that can make you feel a little sick. You won't die from it for sure, but it's just a safety precaution. All right, so let's get started making this. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna look down here. We're gonna start with our bar of soap. So I just have some here. I have the rest of it in here ready to go. So what I've done is I've chopped it pretty fine. You can do the whole thing. You don't even need this, but this just saves some time. And so when we make this recipe, we wanna make sure that all of the soap particles are pretty fine. So when we put it into the laundry, they will break down with the water when it's all added into the machine. If you don't break down the soap enough, you will get some residue with your clothes, which isn't the worst. You can just wash them again if you want that residue to be gone. But pieces like this perhaps might be a little too big, so we want to make sure that they're chopped fine or put in the food processor and ground up really well. So we're going to do that real fast. Yeah, you want it to look like sand or dust. Woo! Lavender scent's getting to me. So that looks pretty good. I could do a little bit more. I probably will here in a second, but let's move on to the other ingredients. So the good thing about this recipe is that we can add a little bit at a time. So, and I'll show you what that means in a second. So I'm gonna put in most of the ingredients and then I'll give it a little shake and stir it up. And then I'll add basically the second cup of borax to mix it all together. Okay. So let's take this and our funnel. So we're gonna do 2 cups of borax total. So like I just said, I'm gonna do 1 now, and then I'm gonna mix it all together with the other ingredients. I'm gonna add the second cup of borax at the end. So I will say that this is the recipe that I like to follow, especially filling up this container here. It does help out that these ingredients help clean your clothes naturally. We'll put them all together. So if you don't have enough of one, or you're just short or just shy, I would encourage you to still try to make this and see how you like your clothes to turn out. If you want to alter it a little bit, people use borax itself for the laundry, so this helps already. We're just adding a couple more ingredients to make it a little better. So it definitely, I think it eases up a little bit of the pressure to make the perfect powdered laundry detergent. Okay, we'll see. All right, 1 cup, almost there. Try not to make a mess. Always gonna happen, right? At least it's a cleaning product. All right, so there's 1 cup. I'm gonna do half a cup of baking soda. It's a little clumpy here. All right, let's break this down a little bit. 1 second. Let me wipe my hands down. All right, then grab your washing soda. I'm gonna do half a cup of this as well. So since I'm using this, I'm going to try to be a lot more careful and not let it spray out as much. So kind of gently tap it. I don't want to inhale it. I will rinse my hands off after using this. Okay, so put in a cup of borax, half a cup of baking soda, half a cup of washing soda. So we're gonna add the soap. Because I want to get it all mixed together, I'm just going to add half of it, give it a good shake, and then add the rest of the borax and then the rest of the soap. Okay. So this is what it starts to look like. Try to show it to you. So you can see some of the soap is not fully mixed in, which you can always, when you're about to put this into the laundry to get it going, you can give it a good shake then too. Okay. Gonna kind of let that sit. Now I'm gonna get the second cup borax. So I will say, as I'm doing this, that I do not have any, I don't have eczema, or I don't have any allergic reactions to other types of laundry detergent, just in general. I know that some people do, and so I would still encourage you to try this out. You know, more natural ingredients so we know what's going in this laundry detergent. However, some people have said that this still bugs them with their skin reactions and stuff like that. So just try this out and see if it works for you. If it doesn't, maybe give it to a friend or something like that. Maybe they can make use of it. There are, which is really awesome, there are some alternatives to plastic bottled detergent out there. True Earth is one of them. They make stripped laundry detergent. This still is wrapped in paper. However, you know, we have baking soda here, that's technically paper. So the concept of being truly waste-free is sometimes just a little difficult. We have to work with what we have. But there are things out there and they're becoming more and more popular. So I would suggest that maybe you give those a try. Also, if you say you look at your schedule and it works out that this is just maybe a little too much work, which I totally get. If you have kids or like really hectic work schedule, you know, the list goes on, you feel, oh, I really want to make something like this, or I want to cut out plastic, but I just don't have the time. I'd encourage you to just Google what's out there and see if you can find a waste-free option. Okay, let's go back down here. Grab my funnel. We're basically ending this video here. This is about it. Pretty simple. I haven't outright done the math, you know, especially with all the ratios and measurements that we're doing. However, usually in the long run, this is cheaper than buying the large liquid gallons of laundry detergent. And sometimes, even if this stuff like this is a little bit more expensive, I like this because I am passionate about trying to use less plastic, and if I have to pay, you know, a couple more dollars to make, or something like True Earth, the laundry strips, I have to pay a little bit more to save on the plastic or support a small business, you know, something like that with the bar of soap that you buy, then I would rather do that. You know, like, where does our money go? What do we support? But it's a journey, it's a process. All right, so that is mixed in there pretty well. This is lavender scented. My husband loves lavender, so that's what I'm making right now. So we want to use this in the laundry. So what do we do? How much do we put in there? And I cannot find my measuring. So I really recommend using 1 to 1.5, maybe two tablespoons is a little too much. 1 to 1.5 tablespoons of this into your laundry. I have a simple washer, so I put my clothes in. Don't pack it too tight, of course, but I fill it up all the way. And then I put in 1 tablespoon of this detergent. I sprinkle it around. Again, we want the soap pieces to be integrated and pretty small. That way there's a less residue on the clothes. It works out pretty well. I have not had any residue problems. Maybe one time I noticed like a black shirt and I just threw it back into the wash and it came back right out. I've never had any stain issues. I would encourage you though, if you have kids, I grew up playing soccer, so grass stains, those are hard to get out. If you have stains, unfortunately I don't have any recommendations off the top of my head right now for that. I do know that, putting baking soda and water and vinegar, perhaps some lemon juice, and just putting that with some water and letting it sit on the stain, I've heard that works out, so I have a little something in my head there. But this is just your general laundry detergent, not necessarily cutting out stains or bleach, certainly not like that. But it does do the job. An amount like this obviously depends on how often you wash your clothes and how much you use it. This will probably last me, I don't know for sure how many loads, but I do possibly 2 loads a week. So this lasts me a month and a half, 2 months. And even though this video, it's a couple minutes long, if you do this and you get going and you have some practice on it, making this laundry detergent doesn't take too long at all. So I think it's pretty easy. I believe that's all the notes I have. Any more tidbits I can think of? Yeah, I've been doing this making this for about 2 to 3 years, and it's really turned out well for me. All right, thanks for joining, guys. All right, so thank you guys again for watching. We have a couple of questions going on throughout the chat here, and I love hearing about what other people are doing. Let's see. Yeah, I believe it's pronounced shabu. I don't know if high efficiency washer. I believe the laundry detergent would work. I'm not quite sure because I'd never had one or like used this laundry detergent with one. So let me try to Google that real fast for you. Try that out. And while I'm doing that, does anyone else have any other questions or could possibly answer that question? Go ahead and write it in. 1 second. There we go. Yes, so Anne asked, is it 1 bar of soap cut and pulverized? It is. It is just a single bar of soap. So you can play with ratios, play with the recipe a little bit if you want. Again, it's not entirely, it is not perfect on the amounts. Your clothes are gonna still get washed. It'll still be good. This is just what I found to work out the best, and a recipe that I found online that I've started using and I really like. So what I'm getting at is if you want to cut down the recipe, maybe only use half a bar of soap, you can alter your ingredients to match that if you like. I've even ran out of soap a little bit, so I didn't have a full bar of soap, and I was able to still, I honestly made a larger batch just with the half bar of soap, and my clothes still smelled fine. They turned out fine. Nothing was ruined, so that worked out. Let's see. Okay, so to answer the question previously about high efficiency washing machines, on this one website, which I'll just link in the chat, it said top loading high efficiency washers work well with powdered, liquid, or single dose tablet homemade detergent. Whichever format you have made, just add it directly to the washer drum before loading clothes. So that's what this says. Again, it's just a single website that I did a quick search of. So obviously I don't want to like ruin any clothes or any machinery or anything like that. That is what I found. So I hope that helps. Awesome. Does anyone else have any questions or any other things that they found would work? Cold water wash, okay. I think I'm lazy or don't pay attention. Ugh, maybe that's not great. But so I'm not picky, and I keep my laundry set at maybe warm. I've done cold before, I know for sure, with this laundry detergent. So I have done cold and it's worked out fine. If you find any residue, if you have time, just wash it through again. Or if it's just one spot, you can kind of put some water on it and rub it off. Your clothes should be clean, should be good to go. It's just kind of sometimes what's left over afterwards, unfortunately, has a few times have stuck to my clothes. But all in all, cold wash has worked.
All right, do you think we're ready to move on?
Let's see. Yeah, I think we're ready. I'm gonna answer this one thing in the chat. It's not a question, but I'm gonna type it out. I think we can move on to the next video.
Yeah, this is one of my favorite things about the skill shares is that it's really just a great way to talk and interact too.
Yeah, I love it. Hi, so now we're going to make homemade oat milk. I really love this recipe because it only takes about 5 minutes to make. It might take a little bit longer than that if you double or triple the recipe, but in that it's quick and easy. Secondly, I love it because it's vegan and dairy free. It also can be gluten free. Just make sure that you buy gluten-free certified oats when making this. Next, I love it because you can use the leftover oats after you strain it. I'll show you guys that later. So you can use that in other recipes to make other things, so there's less waste with that. And then lastly, a really important thing to me is using less plastic. So when you make this, you're not using any plastic or even glass if you find your own container to put the milk in after we make it. You can reuse that container in your house, so you don't have to purchase anything from the store. All right, let's get going. Let me show you guys what we have going on here. All right, so obviously you need your oats. So I always use rolled oats. If you use quick oats to make the milk, it makes it a lot more slimy, which we'll talk about as well as we make it. If you use steel cut oats, it makes the milk, when you blend it, less creamy. So the rolled oats is a happy medium, and so that's what we want to go for. Next, you'll need water. So just make sure that you grab a measuring cup. You'll need a blender, and then a bowl, and some sort of strainer, and also just a spoon. And then if you want to make the milk have more taste, and if you want to drink it just by itself to make it more like regular milk, if you will, I really recommend throwing in some simple syrup, and I'll tell you how much of all that we'll do later. Some salt, and even if you want to grab some cocoa powder or cinnamon or vanilla. That's where people can get really creative, kind of making the chocolate milk all by itself if they want to. A lot of people like to put in dates. That gives it like a natural sweetness that maybe if you didn't want to add sugar, you can do that as well. Also, as we go, since we're going to use the oats afterwards, after we strain it, just go ahead and grab a container to put that in. And then with a lot of stuff that I like to do, try to grab a marker or some way to put dates on things so that we know how old stuff becomes. All right, so the ratio of oats to water is 1 cup of oats to 3 cups of water. You can change it around a bit, find the ratio that you like to use. I like to use this ratio because, again, it's a happy medium for me. More water makes it thinner, less water makes it creamier and thicker. Just remember it will thicken up a little bit once it's in the fridge. So let's do that real fast. Plop it in there. And then 3 cups of water. That's 2. And then 3. So I encourage you guys to use just cold water. I grabbed mine from the tap. You can use filtered water if you want to. That's just what I like to use. Don't use hot water because I think, as we all know, when oats hit heat, they thicken up and they become kind of slimy. They have that texture, which is not what we're looking for. So we'll keep moving on, just using cold water there. So for the salt and the sugar, let's see, just a smidge of salt, maybe about a 1/4 teaspoon. I like to put this all in right before I blend it. That way it mixes better. I've added it in afterwards because I forgot to put it in the first time. So that it did work fine, it was just a little better. I'd like to put in about 3 tablespoons of simple syrup, or you can put in 1 date. Again, cinnamon, vanilla, chocolate, hazelnut even. You can kind of get creative with this. All right, so that's in there now. So we're ready to blend it. I always blend it on this auto smoothie button that I have. You'll hear it, it'll pulse on and off. So I'm gonna do that for about 25 seconds. I need to grab my timer real fast. If you don't have that type of button, you can play around with it, but you might want to blend it around 20 seconds if it's just a continuous blend. I'll be right back. I usually use my phone for the timer, but this will do just fine. Okay. Enough time to do a little dance. So my blender leaks a little bit, but don't mind the mess. Okay. All right, so we're gonna pour this over the strainer. Try to pour a little quickly so that all the oats end up in the strainer and not at the bottom of the blender. So I'll do that, and then I'll give it a swirl and do the rest of it. All right, honestly, that's it. you guys have gotten this far, you've made oat milk. So I wanted to note, as we're stirring this a little bit, we don't want to push it down because that'll encourage aspects of the oats, the slimy parts, to get more into this mixture down here. That slimy part, we want to keep that in mind just throughout this recipe. If you over blend it, I would say if you do about 35 seconds or more, that'll make it slimier. If you under blend it, that's fine. You just might not get enough of the oats into the milk. So I would say around 17 to 25 seconds. Okay. So I'm gonna set this actually on top of this blender here for a second. Set this down there. Show you guys what we have here. So that's oat milk, pretty nice and easy. So, I mean, that gave us 3 cups of oat milk. Again, if you want to double that recipe, play around with the ratios. You can, to get more or to get less. So I'm gonna grab this jar, and I'm gonna grab for myself a funnel because I like to make messes sometimes. Okay, so just pour it in. Alright, I'm gonna grab my marker and I'm gonna put today's date on it. Sometimes I put it when it goes bad, about 5 to 7 days out. I'll put that date instead, but I'll just put today's date on. Today is the 28th, 29th. All right, so I'll talk about that in a second. Put this in here. All right, so for the oats left over, I like to put it in smoothies. Another easy way to do it is in like oat milk cookies or even just regular cookies to give it some different texture, or if you just want to be waste-free, trying to use up what you already have. Another awesome option is homemade granola. Mine that I make is less fancy, but I will show you what it looks like. So I will spread these oats across a pan really thin, and then I will cook it around 20 minutes maybe. I'll just keep an eye on it. What I want is for it to kind of curl up as it's baking. It'll curl up off the pan and become really nice and crispy and golden brown. I just want to make sure that it is cooked all the way, because if you don't cook it and there's still some moisture in the granola, if you put it in your cupboard, it will mold. So I've learned that the hard way. It's a good reason to make mistakes, just to learn things. But this is what it looks like. So you can sprinkle honey, almonds, dried cranberries and stuff in it when you bake it. Give it a nice crunch. So obviously if that, you can use granola for a lot of other things. Yeah, I encourage you guys to get creative and see different ways you can put it into recipes. So for this milk, this oat milk will last 5 to 7 days. I have used it in cooking and baking. Some people don't encourage that. However, in trying to cook vegan and stuff like that, I like it because when you cook oat milk, when you heat it up, it will thicken up. But when I'm making vegan sauces, I'll put a little bit of oil, some salt, or even vegan butter. And so this will thicken up with all the other spices that I use in the recipe for the sauce. So I like that because I don't have to use non-vegan buttermilk and stuff like that. Maybe put in a little bit of flour to encourage the thickness. So just keep that in mind if you don't want it to thicken up and you are using oat milk. I would encourage you to try it out, maybe see what happens. if you really don't like it, but maybe perhaps use a different type of milk. So it does last in the freezer for 1 month. And again, it lasts for about 5 days. Make sure that you give it a really good shake before you use it, just like any other alternative milk. All right, thank you guys so much. Hey, all right, I'm answering any questions in the chat. So yes. Oh, Janelle asked, can you make yogurt from the oat milk? Ooh, that's a good one. That's actually, I thought about that because someone was talking about making vegan yogurt and getting a culture for that and just the whole science behind that. I have made, before I was vegan or plant-based even, tried to make regular yogurt in my crock pot using whole milk. Anyways, that whole process was frustrating. It worked like 1 time out of the 4. And so I don't know. My answer is for Janelle. I don't know if you can make yogurt out of the oat milk. I do know that oat milk is unique because kind of, I guess my thought process going towards the reason why it's unique is because it'll thicken up when cooked. I think all the other nut milks, if you will, all the other soy, cashew, all the other milks are a little bit different because it's nut based, I think is what I'm getting at, versus I guess wheat based or like an oat based milk. So it's just unique in that way. I would encourage you to look up the recipe. I might try to do that real fast myself right now, just to Google it and see if it's possible. I don't know. I think it might not be, unfortunately, but with all the other recipes and again, I mentioned in the video, people sometimes discourage from heating up the oat milk. So like making hot chocolate out of oat milk, I don't know what that would taste like. I've been meaning to do that myself since it's the season to try that out. And I use oat milk for my milk all the time at home anyways. I just don't know what that consistency would taste like, or if it would just be like, almost taste like chocolate oats in a liquid form. It might taste too grainy or too slimy maybe, but I have used, to kind of go a bit further along, I've used oat milk a lot in different recipes. One that I recently did was kind of like homemade vegan grits, like a cheesy grits thing. I used nutritional yeast, some of my apple cider vinegar, and salt, garlic, and I used, instead of water, when I put it in the pan to heat it up, I used oat milk. And so the oat milk kind of thickened it up, kind of like a buttermilk would. And that actually turned out really well. I was really happy. So I still remember that recipe. That was fun to eat and to make. Does anyone else have any questions or any thoughts? I have a couple more thoughts for just ideas of how to use the oats afterwards once you make this, just because trying to be less waste, trying to consume everything, and use it all up. One thought I had was kind of like the granola that I mentioned, the crunchiness. This might be a little bit different texture, and that's the thing when being vegan, or I found, or just being waste-free, trying to get creative. And so textures and tastes aren't always going to be the same, obviously, especially store-bought or processed food and stuff like that. So I kind of tried to be more creative and be more exciting with that, but at the same time balancing that with like standards aren't lower, they're just different when I'm making stuff. So one thought I had was trying to use that granola to crunch it up and make it like a fine sand and use it for breadcrumbs. So the other night I was able to make some really awesome eggplant fries because I just bought an air fryer and my mind was just going towards, oh, what can I do next? What can I use? And I'm about to run out of breadcrumbs. What can I use? Maybe I can use my granola and grind that up and, put the batter through the breadcrumbs, the granola breadcrumbs later on. So we'll see how that works out. That's just another idea of what to use with the oats after it's done. My main go-to is to just throw the oat pulp into smoothies and kind of thicken it up that way. Namita just asked, where can we go online to connect Oh, with others reducing waste in Dayton. Is there a Facebook page with local resources and tips? Thank you for asking that. So I will say, and I apologize, I meant to say this in my intro, but I did not. So recently, within the year, I think it might have been April, I'm not quite sure, I decided to set out and finally get off my butt and create a page, a Facebook group page called Waste Free Dayton. And so if you type that in a search engine, it should come up. And I'm really excited, really happy for everyone involved. We are at about 200 members, which is awesome. I'd love to see all the ideas that people are sharing on there. And so the reason why I would encourage you all to join and participate, even if you don't share any ideas, but just simply see what's on there, is I wanted to create a safe space for everyone to come in, and if they're thinking about being waste-free or environmentally friendly, whatever terms you'd like to use, zero waste, waste-free, vegan, not vegan at all, could never do it. This is for everyone. And I know that this can go into a whole discussion of climate change or the government doing stuff. This is community oriented. I might in the new year launch into some things to think about and look at concerning bigger picture ideas of what to do for the environment. But I just wanted to create that safe space for anyone searching, wanting to share ideas, wanting to see some ideas, to be part of that group and see what they can suggest or just learn from. And that's been really great. I've been so warmed and satisfied, especially during the pandemic, for sure. And I've heard of a lot of people like, oh, I started baking bread more during the pandemic or using creative outlets, or so that's been fun to see just what people have making jam or canning. They share some stuff like that on there as well. And there's a whole list. If you guys want more information, feel free to check it out on that link that Namita just shared. There's a topic section, which I think is really important. I try to add a topic to almost everyone's post, whether it's about recycling, composting, apple cider vinegar, thrift stores, trying to use secondhand stuff. The list goes on. And that's what's really exciting about being waste-free, or, like I said, any type of term you want to use for this. It can involve like all aspects of life, cooking, especially as we've learned, but even just clothes and other things as well. So thank you so much for that. If you guys have any questions at all about that or anything else, feel free to type it in. Thank you, Brett. I know, I was so surprised that you joined us. Like, wait, yeah, I know that guy. And that's been fun too. Friends of friends have joined, and it's just created this small group. Side note, I'm really excited, very excited for the pandemic to be over. But I don't know when that will be. But regardless, just possibly creating when it's safe and ready for us all to come together and get to know each other more in person.
You think you're ready to move on to the liquid dish soap?
Yeah, that'd be great. Thanks.
No problem.
Hello, so now we're going to be making homemade dish soap. I really like this because it uses less plastic. I can put my soap in my own container. And then also dish soap like Dawn, unfortunately, doesn't list their ingredients. So this way we know what is going into our soap and what therefore is going on the surface of our plates and stuff like that. And I don't have a dishwasher, so I have to wash everything by hand. So this is really important for me, having this dish soap work out. I'll mention the residue and stuff like that later on in the video after we make this. However, this recipe is what has worked best for me thus far. So I'm gonna go over the ingredients with you guys, what we need. So first we need a bar of soap. I like to use Castile soap. This is a citrus scent. So no plastic here, just a paper cover. You can add your own essential oils to make it have a scent of maybe lavender or something else that you'd like. This is just what I like to use. It's already ready to go. So we'll need the bar of soap. We will need some water and a measuring cup, a knife. I like to use my food processor. You can also use a blender. I just think this works better. A whisk and a tablespoon. You'll need a funnel later on to put it in your container. You also need a container or a bottle at the end. And so I will say, you are able to make this just with a knife. You don't even need a food processor or a blender. I just think it's a lot easier. So I'll go through the instructions with you guys to show you just how this helps out. So when we get started, the ratio that I found out that I think works best is 2 cups of boiling water to every tablespoon of soap that we use. I like to make mine all at once. So I have actually a bit of this stored elsewhere that I made in the past, and I just add to this bottle just because sometimes I'm lazy and I like to make a big batch all at once. So what I've done is I put together 6 cups of boiling water, and I've kind of eyeballed and measured out half a bar of soap. That's about 3 tablespoons. 6 cups, 3 tablespoons of soap. So get your whatever ratio you want to use. I think this works out best. It makes it more liquid, not as solid. Whatever measurement you want to use, go ahead and get your water boiling over here in a large pot. That's what I have down here. We'll get to that in a second. So get that boiling, and then take your bar of soap and cut it into shavings. So this is one we don't necessarily need the food processor, it just helps out. So I like to find a bar of soap. I encourage you guys to find something that kind of cuts easier into shavings. Sometimes bars of soap are waxy and the shavings stick together. This brand of soap, this type of soap, doesn't do that as much. So this is kind of what you're looking for, this texture here. And as we go along, like I said, I have this food processor, I already have some in there, but you can chop it up really fine. We will be putting this in the boiling water, so the idea is to try to get it into small pieces. That'll help it disintegrate and melt into the boiling water. So the smallest piece you can get, that's the best. That'll quicken this recipe and cut down on time. So I'm gonna set this aside. We already have some in here. I'm just gonna pulse it. Then we're gonna go over to the boiling water. The good thing about this is it's my food processor. All I have to do is put hot water into it and give it a little scrub. It already is clean because it already has soap in it. So if you would join me over here, we have our water. So dump this in, get as much as you can in there. And this is when you grab your whisk. Give it a good stir. So this is the thing, I like to multitask when I do this because it'll take some time to disintegrate into the water and melt. So have your whisk nearby. You're gonna let it simmer until you don't see any soap in it. And it's all melted. I'll show you guys what it looks like. I would say this is the main part of the recipe. It takes about 30 minutes to an hour. It just depends on how much soap you're using, how small the pieces are. And like I said, I like to multitask while doing this just so that I don't have to sit around and wait for this to be done. So once you've seen all of the pieces melt and you don't see any more pieces of soap, that means it's basically finished boiling and simmering. So what you'll do is you will turn down the heat and let it cool down. And what you're aiming for, I have a finished product here for you guys so we don't have to wait the 30 minutes. This is what you're aiming for. You're just liquefying the soap here so you can use it to clean the dishes and make it easier. So that's what we're aiming for. If you unfortunately did not add enough water when you heated it and it solidifies and becomes more like jello and you're unable to pour it into your bottle, all you have to do is simply add more water to it and just heat it up again, and it should be good. And this is what I was talking about, like the ratio of how much soap to water. We're just simply liquefying the bar of soap. So next we're going to transfer this into my bottles of soap that I have going. So I'm going to move you guys over here. Clean up my area a little bit. Alright, so this is actually cool. This is when you grab your funnel. And I forgot to mention, sometimes I like to use a spoon to encourage it to go down into the bottle. And even then, I remember I like to use a chopstick to encourage that, so I'm gonna grab that real fast. It's the little things, little tips, sometimes that help things go quicker. Then I'm also going to grab just a measuring cup, half cup, to help scoop it. There it is. It's going down pretty well. Sometimes I didn't add, did it a little quickly and didn't add enough water when I heated it. So, but this one is pretty good, pretty liquefied. Also, if you raise up your funnel, I learned that fairly quickly. That helps the air and allows it to go down quicker. All right. Okay, so that's it. That is how I make homemade dish soap. So some other people I found can add stuff to this. Look online and see what you like to do. I do want to add that when I use this, it works best with really hot water. So that residue problem comes into mind. Some people have a problem with that. I have a little bit of a problem with that. So that's why I've learned hot water works the best. And then also drying off the glassware and such close to after I've washed it, polishing the glassware, that really helps just cut out that residue. Another trick that I learned is if I add 1 to 3 tablespoons of baking soda to my dishwater when it's hot, it helps break down the grease as well. All right, this is my dish soap. Just make sure you give it a really good shake before you use it. I just add however much I think is going to work and help clean my dishes whenever I wash them. I don't really measure out my water when I wash my dishes. I just want to make sure they're clean. And this does make them clean. I do want to note, just because there aren't any bubbles or any suds does not mean that it's not working. They actually, in Dawn dish soap and other soaps, they will add chemicals and other things like that just to make it frothy and make bubbles occur. In fact, some people think that they do this to encourage us to think that things are actually getting clean, when in fact, this is soap just watered down. This couldn't even make your dishware cleaner. So just because you don't see those bubbles doesn't mean it ain't working. All right, thank you guys so much. Hope you tried this out and it works for you. Thanks. So one thing that I didn't elaborate on that I think I might move towards in this discussion is the kind of the problem with your dishes having remnants of water, streaks, and I'm forgetting the word that's used. Polishing, essentially having to like polish and like dry your dishes off right after you wash it. And I did mention that in the video a little bit. But a couple of the brands, I forget what they're called, but there are a couple of the brands out there that are like waste-free, like bars of soap that are especially made for dishes that I've seen. I haven't tried them out yet. I haven't ventured out from this recipe video. I've only used the bar of soap heated down and stuff like that, and what you just saw there. But I do want to try some other stuff out. Some people have said that there was just that general problem with the streaks being on your dishware and stuff like that afterwards, and that it seems like Dawn or other products commercially made perhaps have been able to solve that problem. So this recipe, I will say I have a little bit of problem with the residue appearing afterwards. So I'm not going to promise it's not perfect. I'm going to say that to you guys. It's not perfect. However, recently I've definitely added that baking soda, about a tablespoon or 2 tablespoons to my water. So what I've done is I'll have my 2 dish sinks, both really hot water. That just always helps. One sink, I will put the soap in with the hot water. That's where I'll scrub and clean my dishes. And then I'll have my rinse sink. In my rinse sink, I put the tablespoons of baking soda in there. You can also put your baking soda in with the sink with the soap. I like it. Perhaps it works better in the rinsing sink. I think it does. I found that most recently. I knew I wanted to try that out in my head and like literally work that out before this video with you guys just to see. So I had some answers for you about that residue problem. So that has helped for sure, adding the baking soda. And then I have limited counter space anyways, since I don't have a dishwasher. And so I will at some point have to go through, and my dishes add up a little bit sometimes, my dirty dishes. So I will have to go through phases of pausing, washing, and then drying off, which always helps with the residue. It solves that problem. So Stephanie just asked, how would a vinegar rinse work? That's a really great idea. And now that you say that, I remember reading about that, Stephanie. So I think I might have tried it once. That was a long time ago. And I have read that does help cut out the grease in general. And that's the awesome thing about apple cider vinegar. Using your apple cider vinegar to put in with the dishes, maybe that'll work. That's combine the two together. That's the only vinegar I have in my house right now. And then there are some dirty dishes in there. So I might even try that out today and see if it'll work. Vinegar, scientifically, just how it is known to cut down on grease and stuff like that. Like all-purpose vinegar cleaner with your countertops and stuff, that really helps. Susan asked, do you know of a recipe for dishwashers? Susan, I do. And I'm going to be honest with you guys, I'm getting a little bit of headache just because I'm so excited, I think. So if I seem off just a little bit, it's just the headache. So Susan, I do have a recipe for dishwashers. I haven't used it in a while because it's just been a couple of years since I've moved. I'm going to try to find it for you and share it in the chat. It is in depth, and I made it when I had more time, free time. So I will just say it might be, unfortunately, a little bit too much work, but I will share that. Let me try to find it for you. Stephanie said, yes, vinegar cleans glass. Drink some water. Yeah, my water bottle's empty. Yeah, okay, good to know. I will definitely try out that vinegar then. Okay, hey, yeah, Susan, go ahead and try to Google it. I'm on there right now. Let me just quickly see if I can find the one that I ended up using. 1 second.
If you need to take a break, feel free to take a break and go grab some water. If you like, I can always just put something on the screen for you.
Okay, sweet, that'd be great. I can get water really quickly, so I think I'm gonna do that real fast if you don't mind.
All right, let's all take a quick water break.
Okay, thanks.
Right, I think we should wait maybe just another 30 seconds. Give everyone a chance to drink some water.
Yeah.
All right. Are you looking for a recipe?
Yeah, but I can't find it. I'm sure I will.
Okay. Well, once again to everyone, I'll be sending a follow-up email with a bunch of different recipes from Natalie. So we'll follow up with you about this.
Okay. Okay. So did you want to move on to the discussion questions if there are any, and then we can try to do show and tell part?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. I know we've been discussing each of the recipes and stuff like that after all the videos, but I just wanted to give everyone another opportunity. Does anyone else have any other questions or anything that they would like to say before we just move on to the next section? All right.
Hold on, I have a question.
Yeah.
So for the oat milk, can you use that for any kind of Like, is it good for hair? Do you know? Sorry, that's a random question, but it seems like it'd be good for hair almost.
Oh my gosh. I don't know, maybe.
Because I was just thinking about the apple cider vinegar and how it's good for hair and like scalp, and I was like, maybe oat milk is too. It seems like nourishing.
Yeah, yeah, kind of like a cream. Um, I know sometimes it's just me just talking, but like sometimes on products they'll say, "Oh, made with avocado oil or essential." They'll just describe it, and I'm like, they could put anything on that bottle and make it sound good. But oat milk, like oats, does sound good.
Yeah, I was just thinking about how that could be like processed into some like other kind of skin or
Mm,
hair care
mhm,
products. But
we do
ooh, Susan just said it could be good for itchy, dry skin. Yeah, I was thinking, is like, how could you make a lotion with that or something? That'd be nice.
that.
Because I use like a lotion that's like, they use oatmeal type ingredients. So I was like,
Right.
ooh,
Mhm. Mhm. Or like a scrub or something. Ooh, that's
ooh. Someone said you can use it in soap bars. Shabu.
okay. Moving on, I think to the next section is our show and tell section. So,
Oh, sorry. Did you want to share about the waste-free lifestyle, just kind of more general things about how you,
oh yeah,
yeah.
definitely. So, this one isn't this like little section isn't too long. Just some thoughts and stuff like that. So, food waste, I did have the numbers pulled up, but it's in the United States, there are tons of food waste that end up in landfills. And landfills alone, like just how they are and how they operate or how they don't operate, it's not like a compost. So unfortunately, items do break down a little bit in the landfill. The statistics are kind of difficult to observe with the landfills because each one's different. There's junk and different stuff in each one, so it's really hard to measure the breaking down of things. But in general, items, compostable items, don't fully break down in the landfill, especially when you take. Usually, a household would take their bag of trash that's wrapped in a plastic bag, which takes years and years to break down fully, and they'll throw that in the landfill. And then you have like broken furniture and stuff like that that's thrown in. Um, Regardless, so just keeping the food waste down and also helps you save money. So buying less, watching what you purchase, watching what you buy. So one thing that I like to do that I need to start doing more, or finally did it, is creating meal prepping, creating a menu for our household. So it's only my husband and I, so it's pretty easy. Um, Luckily, he's become, I'm gonna pick on him, he's become less of a picky eater, especially with my like plant-based diet and stuff like that. So we are able to write down, honestly, we'll write down Monday through Sunday, or we'll pick like 4 days a week so that our food doesn't go bad and we'll go to the grocery store again after those 4 days. And we'll list out what we'd like to do for lunch and dinner, or even all three meals, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And of course, there's freedom to move around. If we don't want to feel like eating something, move that around. That goes household to household. So we have a chalkboard in our kitchen that we write stuff out. So that's definitely just a common thing, but that's something that I really like to present to people to help save waste, just because you know what you need to buy once you make the menu when you go to the store. Another thing too is rotating stuff through your fridge. So one drawer I have is more of the fresher fruits and vegetables that I know I don't need to eat right away. And then I'll have the other drawer that stuff that's older that needs to be eaten. And of course, in the video, you saw me use like a chalk marker. I love that thing. I'll use that on leftovers and stuff like that, where I've consumed something and I put so much stuff together, and stir fry for two. Now this is stir fry for four. So we're gonna put the leftovers in the fridge, write the date that I made it, and put that in there. And another thing, along with the veggies and fruits and stuff like that, the food that needs to be consumed right away. Sometimes I'll also just write what that item is on the other side of the chalkboard that I have, so that I know I can look and think, well, I don't even know what to make. And so I can look at that board and say, and that I don't have to necessarily dig around in the fridge the whole time. I can look at the board instead and see what needs to be consumed and stuff like that. There was a point where I started my compost pile and I really wanted to get it going. So I did not waste food on purpose, but I was just, thank you, Brett, about the chalkboard. Yeah. It's something that I think is really easy to do, or like a dry erase board, or even a piece of paper, you can stick to your fridge, maybe next to your grocery list or something like that. Concerning the compost pile, I was more wasteful as I was trying to build up my pile, but then I realized, again, I'm kind of wasting money too, um, with my food waste there. Trying to think of, just real quick, any other non-wasteful tips, if you will. Any recipes for, so Shabu asked, any recipes for hand moisturizer? I don't really have any recipes. That's a great question. I do have, it's downstairs and I'm upstairs right now. I'm gonna do a shout out to a local, a local person who makes lotion bars. I know that lotion bars are not that common, although you might be able to find a couple other people besides the person that I purchased from, just in the area. There might be other people besides her. But if you just look up Juniper, I believe it's someone else, Namita might be able to help out with that. Let me type it up. Juniper Meadow Farms. Might get that wrong. I'm bad with names, I apologize. But she's a local, just a local person who makes soaps and lotions and stuff like that. So I have one of her lotion bars, and it's really cute because she made it into like a flower. And it's literally a bar that I'll take to work because my hands get so dry, and I'll rub it on my hand and stuff like that. Yeah, if anyone else has any ideas concerning that. But yeah, just trying to be more conscious about food waste. And I started to ask, this goes into another topic that I wanted to share. Just wondering where my food comes from, how it's processed, and how it's packaged. So I know though I'm just a single person, and so are we. We're all individuals, but we're collective individuals. And so all that you do, it does add up, and it makes a difference. It does make a difference. So don't be too hard on yourself. I felt a lot of guilt of, honestly, the other week I went to Chick-fil-A and I bought a styrofoam iced tea. Sometimes that happens, and it's understandable. It's the world that we live in, and we can do the best that we can do, and that is awesome. So when I go to the store, I try to keep that in mind of just, I'm going to do the best that I can do, and I'm going to be great at it. So when I buy salad dressing that I don't want to make at home, I'll try to purchase that in a glass container instead of a plastic one. That's one thing. Glass definitely recycles a whole lot better than plastic. I will do a side note, plastic, only about 9% of it is truly recycled. I've seen several videos where unfortunately some people, truckloads are dumping plastic into landfills because no one bought the plastic to make and to reuse it into other items. So plastic items do happen, and I still purchase things in plastic, but I'll just try to watch out. I'll try to purchase things instead in cardboard or glass as well. I think that might be it from what I can remember. Just little tidbits.
So when we move into the show and tell part, if you're interested in sharing some of your tips and tricks, just let me know in the chat and I'll be sure to put a spotlight on your video and so you can go ahead and share. Or I'd say if you just have anything just like general to share about, even if you don't have it in front of you, that's okay too.
Yeah.
I was thinking it could be nice to have a whole other just a skill share where we can just make the whole thing a show and tell for like waste-free Dayton
That would be
and
so
otherwise.
awesome. And we have the there's that waste-free Dayton Facebook group, and it has people's pictures, on their profile, and they're commenting and they're writing, but having that face-to-face interaction, that'd be so awesome.
Yeah, and then we can make it live on that page too. So I see you, Anne. So I'm going to go ahead and spotlight your video.
Thank you. This is a wonderful program. And I just wanted to share, because we're talking about waste, that even if people don't own a home with a yard where they can compost outside, for many years, I composted with a vermiculture bin, a worm bin, in my third floor apartment. And it was really good to stay in touch with how much organic waste I was generating. And then I love houseplants, so I was able to put it on my houseplants, or I could just bring it out to a tree. And I still keep a worm bin in my kitchen. I think I always will, because I use it for demonstration purposes, and it's good. If the weather outside is snowy or really cold, I can put coffee grounds or tea bags or anything in the worm composting. And I'll write the name of a really good book in the chat. It's in our library system, and it's probably in yours too. It's called Worms Eat My Garbage. Thank you.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you. I love it. I love all of it.
Ooh, thank you for putting that in the chat. All right. Susan Smith is wondering if you know if the majority of cardboard is recycled.
Yeah, I would say no, because I don't know. So Susan, I've often wondered that, and even down to the tape that is not recyclable that is on the cardboard, simply because I work, even though it's like a small coffee shop that I work at, just the idea of like working in restaurants or places, any place that gets shipments in, break down the cardboard at the end of the shift, take it out to a recycling bin. And so I wonder about that. And just because of that statistic that I do know of, that only 9% of recyclable items are like truly recycled. 9% only. I think that includes cardboard and of course the plastic bottles and stuff like that we know of. That generally, that's when I think of recyclable. I don't think of cardboard. Just sharing my thoughts. So I would say, unfortunately, no, I don't think so. Although part of me wonders if I would think that cardboard would be easier to recycle than the plastic. The thing with plastic itself is it's cheaper and easier for companies and businesses to make new plastic, like make new water bottles out of plastic, than to reuse the recycled water bottles. Sometimes you just got to follow the money, unfortunately. And so you learn it through that way. So that would be a good thing to look up, the cardboard. Susan asked, would burning cardboard food containers in a backyard bonfire be a decent option? That's a good question. I've often wondered about that myself. Just like, is it better for me to burn it instead of put it in the recycle bin? My first thought is I would want to watch out for, sometimes plastic and cardboard are like put together when manufacturing. So you have to watch out for where it's poly, like there's linings and stuff like that. that you had to watch out for it. And so when you burn the plastic, that can be bad for the environment and of course bad for yourself if you're standing near the fire. So I would just watch out and make sure that the cardboard doesn't have any plastic lining. And then also sometimes within that, the inks and stuff like that can be not good for the environment or good for the air. I'm just speaking off the top of my head here. I do know that once like wood and other things are burned down, that ash and what's like in ashes is good for composting and stuff like that. So maybe nitrogen is in that. So the idea of burning items and using what's left over is good. Sorry, I don't have a for sure answer for that one.
I just wanted to add a note here. So Community Solutions, we own a little over 100 acres in Yellow Springs, Ohio, and we're a regenerative farm. So that means that we're not just, extracting or sustaining where the land's at, we're rejuvenating it, we're adding, and we're focused on the soil. And a lot of soil health is based on, adding, compost. Compost is considered a regenerative practice. So we compost here, and if you haven't composted before, I think some people get scary, like it's smelly or like whatever it is. I actually find it's not that bad, and it's actually kind of it's a really beautiful thing. Usually there's lots of colors, but I would say if you're looking for a place to give compost to, I believe that you could contact us, and we'll be happy to add some to our pile so that you can help rejuvenate this land that we're trying to help regenerate. So one thing I also just wanted to say was, if you're a gardener or, if you're someone who purchases local food, I would definitely recommend that. And trying to help, whoever you're getting food from build their soil is going to impact you greatly. So our food is only as nutritious as the soil has nutrients. And so and that's one of the saddest things is like when you're putting these nutrient wastes into a plastic bag, for example, instead of putting it back in the ground, that's so much of a loss of opportunity. And they're finding that, food grown in soil that's been regenerated and regenerative practices have been used, they can be 200 times as nutritious. I mean, this was at least for a carrot study. So they found one carrot, grown regeneratively could equal 200 conventionally grown carrots. So this is a big deal. That's a huge deal. And so when we're talking about food waste as well, it's like, if you only had to eat one carrot to equal 200 carrots, I mean, what does that do to you? And what does that do to how much are you wasting there necessarily?
Mm-hmm. Saving money. Power carrot. Yeah.
Power carrot. Yeah.
That is awesome. I applaud and I echo the composting thoughts there and like the worm bin and stuff like that. That's really interesting. I haven't tried the vermicomposting, the worm composting, but actually now that you mention it, it's winter time. I do want to try that out. I just add on, I was nervous about like the smell and stuff like that too. But I've gotten lazy with my compost, and just for me personally and what my household has accumulated in the compost, it doesn't smell too bad, not too slimy or anything like that. So it's been pretty good.
Especially with this cold weather, I think too, like if you have it outside, I think it's just going to be kind of frozen right now. I think in the hot summer, it gets a little, but that's like prime time, composting time too. That's like a big decomposition time.
Yeah. So Rachel, real fast, also I remembered people can donate their compostable items to the to you guys over there. That is amazing, and I love that. And that's actually one thought I had, like this grand idea of creating, maybe, I don't know, maybe there are some already, creating composting sites that are more accessible just to people in Dayton and Yellow Springs. So that is amazing that you guys are doing that.
Ooh, Nisa just posted a compostdayton.com, which I'm sure will have some other composting sites. I'm not sure. I think that we're in the process of making it more accessible for others. I'm not sure if, but I'm sure if like you were just to connect with us on the individual level, that's fine. But I think we're working on a more community compost like site on a more wide scale. So. Ooh, so I need to just say that Compost Dayton has a pickup service. So that is certainly convenient and nice.
I do know that, I don't know what the cost is, but there's a cost. And at one point when we were in our single bedroom and I started to explore composting and being waste free, that's when my exploration started. They didn't travel to Miamisburg. They are originated in Dayton, but I've heard that they are awesome and that it's more commercial composting. It's a whole big thing for them. It's their business. So their stuff breaks down quicker and easier and faster. So that's really good. Does anyone have anything else they'd like to share? Any products or anything like that? I have a couple of just websites that sometimes I'll buy shampoo bars from, or there's this one called Bamboo Switch that I've just started buying more compostable Q-tips. Q-tip is the brand name, like ear swabs. The reason why I like it is because some off-brand ear swabs themselves are technically compostable, but they come in the plastic container. From Bamboo Switch, it comes in like a cardboard compostable container with no plastic or anything like that. That's just one example of many. Larissa said, I'm excited about worms eating my garbage. Yes. Love it. I don't know. One thing, we don't have to keep going too long, but one thought I had just now was I recently tried to make homemade tofu. So those dried soybeans I bought in the brown paper bag at Whole Foods, and I soaked them overnight, and I made a huge mess. And it honestly wasn't the best experience, but I had that done. And so I'm honestly going to try that again because I follow a couple of people on Instagram, and I think what my problem was, it was putting more weight on the tofu substance to let it solidify, and that was my problem. My problem was it tasted great, but it just broke apart too easily, and so I got a little frustrated trying to cook with it and stuff like that. Tofu scramble, but I want more than that. So I'm going to try that again, but that was really interesting. And it also showed me okara. I keep wanting to say okra. The substance that is, you basically soak the soybeans and then you grind it up. And there's a substance that you use after you filter some of it out. And so essentially there's a lot of waste. There's more waste than I thought there would be left over. Similar to the oat milk waste, there's that oat pulp that we had at the end. A lot more than that with the soy waste to make tofu. I was able to use that soy waste, the leftover stuff, and make actually those cheesy grits I talked about earlier in the video. I was able to morph it into that. I was like, I already have this. Let's see what I can do with it. But it was definitely an eye-opener to see, okay, this is, I go to the store and this is how I buy tofu in a plastic package or, vegan option that I want, but how can I make it at home, or how much work goes into it? So it was good. I'm going to try to do better next time. I don't know if there'll be that many more times, depending on how hard it is. So that was an interesting journey. Yeah. So Susan just tapped out, and I'll read it to everyone. Although it is based out of Washington State, it's a small business that's vegan. Oh my gosh, yes. Okay, I'm gonna mess this up. I've actually bought from them, which is funny. Organique,
It's raw
had
organic.
organic, yes. Has they have great shampoo bars, and just all the other products that they have are awesome. Yes, so I purchased from them a pillow, which was a bit more expensive than I wanted it to be. But I'm passionate about this, so I bought it, and I was really happy with it. They make great stuff. Anne said, "Have you read Wild Fermentation?" I have not. I need to write that down for sure.
Yeah, if anyone else has any good books or resources, feel free to put them in the chat, because I can also send the chat to everyone later on if they need to reference it. And also, Natalie, feel free to send me any other like books and resources too, so we can just send all of that out.
Yeah.
Including stores and just different places that you really like. I'm definitely going to be checking out what was it? Is that Juniper?
Meadow Farm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that one's pretty good. I love mayo, I'm not gonna lie, especially like I've made, I guess, vegan sushi before, but or like homemade sushi, whatever. And I've been able to kind of, in my own way, create the spicy mayo that I love, the dipping sauce, but it's not the same. Still like it. Love it.
Yeah, I think it could be fun just to have one that's just kind of like all show and tell, and have a kind of like, or maybe just like a lineup of people that like. So I'm gonna email everyone that's signed up, and of course ask everyone if they would like to share in the future, and maybe we can kind of coordinate just something where like there's one recipe after another. That would be so jam-packed.
Oh my gosh, I love it. And when I was making my own videos, this is my first time doing this. So thank you, everyone. I'll say thank you at the end, but for sure, thank you for watching and being here. I know it's my own house, my own kitchen, trying to make it look a little professional and cleaned up. I just like that idea of down to earth. We're all human. We're all going through this together, and nothing's perfect. Trying out these recipes.
So Namita just brought up that we have a Skillshare on January 19th, which is going to show how to use food waste to make natural dyes for clothing. So that's also going to be free. Next weekend, we also have another Skillshare that's going to be about locally focused and sustainable fiber arts. Both of these are also going to be co-hosted by Dayton Fiber Shed. I've learned a lot about clothing from them and how important it is to try to make them be ecologically sustainable, and help our local economy too. So they offer a lot of resources, and they've built a very strong network. We are also at the end of the year, so this is 2021. So we had to reschedule something from last year, and it was going to be a local fiber fashion show. So that's something that's also going to be coming up. I know that they've got me interested in knitting now, and so even if you're not interested, I would recommend checking it out. And if you are interested, this is a great time to connect with them, and I feel like there's always something to learn.
That sounds like a lot of fun.
Yeah, and those are also going to be free as well. So once again, next weekend, same time, that's going to be the locally focused and sustainable fiber arts. The presenter is going to be Asha Brogan. And then the one in January, that's going to be the Refresh Your Wardrobe with Natural Dyes.
Okay.
All right, Natalie, I'm going to give you the last words. you want to share. Do we want to post the Facebook group in the chat again, just for people who want to join?
Yes, for sure. Let me do that real fast. How slow can I get?
So yeah, we'll follow up with everyone with links, resources, books, like anything we can think of, just so that you have something to walk away with. And if you can't remember everything, I know I take so much notes I can't remember sometimes. So yeah, and then we're also going to be, this was recorded, so we're going to be posting that onto Community Solutions YouTube channel, which I recommend that you follow. We have a whole playlist just dedicated to the Skillshare series, and we're going to be continuing the Skillshare series all year long. We've been really enjoying co-hosting this, and and we also just really appreciate people who are wanting to share different skill sets. So we'll be reaching out. I know a lot of you also had some good ideas, so perhaps we can try to schedule something in at a later date.
Yeah. So as we are signing off, I just want to say again, thank you to everyone who even joined for just a couple of minutes. I hope that you were all inspired and that you learned something. I hope that you try these recipes out and even just tweaking a little bit, maybe if you have to, seeing what works best for you and your household. Again, earlier I mentioned, this is being waste-free, helping the environment, climate change, combating that. It's a big task to take, but we are all in this together. And I just want to encourage each one of you. You are awesome. You are beautiful. You are loved. And to keep on loving the earth, keep on loving the community around you. We can gather together. We can do this together. And you are, no matter each decision to put something in the recycling bin, that is something that helps. That's why we have recycling just in general, or starting something composting, trying to do something like that. Again, the list goes on with what we've talked about. Get creative, see what works best for you, and feel free to, again, join the Facebook group that I provided and ask questions, share your ideas. Thank you guys so much.
All right. Thank you all so much. Have a great day, everyone.